Hi everybody, it's Magdalena from the Witch's Hive. Today I want to talk about grounding. How do you ground yourself? How do you ground yourself before you do a tarot reading? How do you ground yourself in everyday life? What are some of the practices that you have that make you feel more focused, more in touch with yourself, more in touch with Mother Nature, just in general, settled? So we're going to talk about the tarot cards, which I feel represent that in the world of tarot. And if you're wondering what this little mixture is that I put together, it's mugwort, sage, cedar, and a few other little bits and pieces. I think everybody has their own little individual practice they've either learned over time, from gathered information and feel like, oh, this little thing helps me and this little thing helps me, and I'm going to combine them. I have little rituals that I do that make me feel connected when I feel like I'm flying high. And I have a tendency to float very easily, being an air sign, going into other worlds, but that's a story for another day. The Knight of Pentacles on his dark horse, tall, dark and handsome. The horse, not the knight. Well, who knows? The Knight gives us a vibe of being extremely steady. His energy is extremely grounded. Those horses' hooves are just rooted right into the ground. The Knight's armor looks like it's quite heavy as well and stable. It's very shiny though, he keeps it clean. That's very important to this Knight. So I don't think this one's been in battle recently because he is quite grounded, taking the time to just stay still and focus on that pentacle in his hand, that coin. Now, pentacles represent all the things that ground us. Our careers ground us, finances, family, the furniture that we surround ourselves with, our home. They're all things that make us feel secure, make us feel like we have a purpose. The Knight of Pentacles is somebody that's very patient, very steady, very trustworthy. It's somebody that takes the time to just analyze things and ground themselves before making a move. So you can see he's holding that pentacle quite gently, but it's very well balanced as well. Now, I love the fact that if you go along in the court cards, after the Knight, the Queen of Pentacles is the one that has so much to give all the time, materialistically and financially. And then we get to the King of Pentacles. So if you think of the Knight as like a slow, steady, burning fire, nothing too crazy, he's just steady as he comes, as he goes. I like to think of the King as perhaps he's the Knight in older age, grown-up Knight here becomes this king. A few things about the King of Pentacles. He's a little overgrown. I would say that he is the most grounded out of all of the cards of the tarot, but he's so grounded that these vines, grapevines, have kind of overgrown his throne and really, really rooted him in place. You can see behind him his whole empire, his castle and everything. It's a great card for feeling stable, but it's unmoving. He is so grounded that it's almost lethargic. So in a sense, it's like a warning card as well, where we remind ourselves or our person that we're doing the reading for, our querent, to cut back the vines a little sometimes, just so you can wiggle your toes. Here you can see he's sticking out his armored foot, his little footsie right there. And again, it's all shiny. So he definitely hasn't been in battle for a long, long time. Maybe he even progressed from here to here quite fast. These two cards, I would say, are the most grounded cards of the tarot. The Two of Wands being a 2 in numerology, it's still quite a young number. But with the Two of Wands, we here see this person standing on what looks like a balcony of their home. And as we know, our homes are what generally ground us. It's our temple. But they're looking out into the world. They hold in the palm of their hand a globe, the world. They're kind of holding onto one wand for that security of home, but you can see that they want to take that leap of faith to kind of leave. So this is a card of being grounded, but it's also a card of moving too. And I just kind of think that it's cool to point out that the other wand here is actually shackled to the wall. That one's not going anywhere unless you get a chainsaw and you cut it straight off or hammer it down or something. But generally what it means is that it's not going anywhere. It also means that one's being all about what drives us, energy, passion, things like that. Part of us stays grounded at home no matter what. Our roots, they stay. Doing the work to ground yourself. Both of these cards came up for me when I thought about what work can we do to ground ourselves. Swords is all about our mind, our intellect, knowledge, how we think, how we perceive things, how we communicate, everything to do with words, everything to do with the braino. The Two of Swords. It's about grounding yourself to focus your mind. To focus your mind on a decision that needs to be made. The decision that needs to be made, I feel like, is the second part of this card. The first part of the card that I want to talk about is the swords in this person's hand. They look like hella heavy swords, right? But they're holding them so strongly and they're holding them so steadily that it balances out their whole body. And one of the reasons why I thought about doing a grounding video today was because earlier today I was doing yoga and we were in mountain pose and I started getting all these thoughts in my head. Geez, I feel so grounded and so lovely, and I was thinking, what cards in the tarot make me feel the same way? So this card is all about putting aside your emotions, all the cups feelings, all the Wands fiery responses. Put those aside and just think with the swords. Think with your mind. But to get to that point, you need to ground yourself first. This person has turned their back on the water. They've turned their back on the energy of the cups, the energy of emotions, the energy of the tides and the moon that governs the tide. Here you can see as well, this moon here is governing this tide, and this tide is quite, like the water is quite calm. But they still turn their back on it because they want to make a clear-cut decision. They're sitting on a cement seat, unmoving, nice and steady. It also reminds me of like a seated meditation position, which I think is really cool. Focusing in meditation, when your mind starts to wander, you let that thought be present, leave, and continue on with your meditation. So this is the kind of same representation where they're weighing up a decision. Perhaps there's a bunch of thoughts, dozens of thoughts floating through their mind, and they're like, oh, not that one, let that one go. Oh, that's interesting, I value you, hello, how are you today? Okay, goodbye, next. So something to remember with this card. Doing the work with the Two of Swords and grounding yourself. It's a very inactive card. It's a very meditative and patient card. Literally grounded in a coffin, but this card does not mean you are going to die and be put into a coffin. It represents just taking the time to slow down. Also, in connection with yoga, perhaps seated meditation, Shavasana, seated meditation, Shavasana. Two of my favorite things. A very grounded, peaceful card. A practice that I like to do is to pull out cards that I want to be a part of their world. And it was a great way of learning when I was learning the tarot. I would take one card out and I would set up a very peaceful space around me. First, I would focus on that card and I would take it in. I would take in what world it is. What's the weather like? What are the people doing? What would it smell like if I was there? What could I hear? Would I hear birds or would I hear traffic? What would be going on in the streets of that world of the tarot? And then I would close my eyes and I would go into that space through a meditation. A great way of grounding yourself, say in the morning before you're going to start your day, might be with the Four of Swords. Pull this card out, lay it in front of you, lie down or sit up and do some breathing. In for 4, out for 4. Just taking time, gently look at the card, imagine yourself in it, and just take the time to be at peace and grounded. Like these 3 swords here, they're pointing down towards the earth to be grounded and then to lay at rest. Again, if you need to make a decision and you feel ungrounded, you feel like you're thinking with your heart, not your head, or you're thinking with your emotions and your passion and your drive and you're grumpy and you want to just explode and you want to be raw about things, Two of Swords, I definitely recommend. So you can put it up on your altar. Or if you don't have an altar, just sticky tape it to your mirror in the bathroom. You can photocopy it, put it around your house just as a gentle reminder as you're walking by it every day to kind of think, okay, I'm going to think about this decision with my head. Or again, you can sit and meditate with it. As I mentioned earlier, the Knight of Pentacles maybe becoming the King of Pentacles in the end, a little too grounded. I too feel like the Two of Swords becomes the Queen of Swords. So the Queen of Swords is the master of clear-cut decisions. See her hand? See that sword? What does a sword do? Cuts through things, gets straight to the point. She is sharp, a witty, a strong person, somebody who's very direct with their thoughts. Two of Swords perhaps becomes the Queen of Swords and is very direct and very straight to the point. Those are my grounding cards and how to do the work with grounding. I'm taking some time and thinking about those cards. I hope you enjoyed this little lesson. Ghost and I hope we see you soon again. Okay, bye.